excuse me, this is Jerry calling. I really want to thank you a lot for, trying to help. I heard this morning that everyone over in the Lakers camp think they're going to get him. I just find that hard to believe that he would want to go to that shit show where he would not even wouldn't get his name in the paper, and he wouldn't be the face of the franchise, that's for sure. And he might be the best player on the team, but hope things are well, and again, I really, really appreciate everything you've done. I'll keep you apprised of what goes on, but I do want to get together with you privately and love to take you to the dinner and even Sam if he's around, so I can at least pay my respects to you guys for being so generous and helpful.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Lakers Central. So this whole Jerry West thing has been in the news for a while now, at least about a week, and I had no intention on really doing any videos for it or talking about it on the podcast. But once he mentioned the Lakers, I just wanted to talk about it, like everybody else probably is right now on social media. So that apparently is a voicemail that Johnny Wilkes, who is suing Jerry West for 2.5 million, because Johnny Wilkes alleges that he helped the Clippers and Jerry West get Kawhi Leonard. So that's a voicemail that Johnny has apparently released from Jerry West to him to TMZ, who obviously released it to the world. And now here we are trying to make of it whatever this thing is. So like I said, Johnny Wilkes is suing Jerry West for $2.5 million. And who knows what will come of that. But apparently it's picking up some steam because Adam Silver and the NBA is actually investigating if there's any truth to what Johnny Wilkes is alleging. And so just to kind of make sure you guys understand what's going on, Johnny Wilkes is alleging that he helped the Clippers get Kawhi Leonard, which from what I understand would be illegal within NBA guidelines and protocols. I don't know what role Johnny Wilkes actually what role he actually served and all of that happening, but he's starting to release whatever quote unquote evidence that he has in trying to build his case. And so just so we're clear, you have two separate things going on right now. Whatever happens with what the courts will decide of this situation in this lawsuit, and then whatever the NBA will decide. Two separate things. The burden of proof with the courts will be separate from what the burden of proof is with the NBA. And if you guys recall, the NBA levied the Lakers one of the harshest fines, maybe the harshest fine ever in NBA history, when Magic went on Jimmy Kimmel and looked at the camera and winked at Giannis Antetokounmpo, who the Lakers might have been monitoring. But he winked at the camera and talked about how Giannis would be great for the Lakers, and the NBA fined Magic and the NBA and the Lakers $500,000. So here we are, right? Jerry West is a consultant for the Clippers, and I have no problem with him, talking to a potential recruit, star player or one of their reps, and trying to put down other teams, even the Lakers, in hopes of trying to land said star player to the team that he works for, in this case the Clippers. That's what all these execs do. Whatever. I think what makes it really interesting with Jerry West is, one, he's the NBA logo, which I'm sure all of you are aware, but he is one of the greatest Lakers of all time. He won a championship for the Lakers with Wilt Chamberlain. Jerry West helped did put together the Showtime Lakers with Magic and Kareem, who won 5 championships. Jerry West brought Shaquille O'Neal as a free agent from Orlando to the Lakers. He also made the trade for Kobe Bryant. They ultimately won 3 championships together. And so Jerry West is ingrained with the Lakers. He is a Lakers legend. Make no mistake about it. He is a NBA legend. But what's really interesting is that during this whole recruiting process, he calls the Lakers a shit show. He talks about he has heard that the Lakers, people at the Lakers think that they're going to get Kawhi Leonard. And he said that even though Kawhi would be the best player on the Lakers, he would never be the face of the franchise, while they're essentially saying, one, Kawhi is better than LeBron and Anthony Davis, but then further saying even if he is better than them, LeBron will be the face of the franchise while he is in the purple and gold. So Jerry West is saying a lot in that like minute clip that I played for you guys. And let's just start with this. Jerry West taking shots at the Lakers. I don't know what to make of that. I'm not a big fan of it. Like, he's one of the greatest Lakers of all time, and regardless if he thinks that Kawhi is better than LeBron or Anthony Davis or whatever, I don't really see a reason for him to be taking shots at a team that he helped make one of the greatest franchises in NBA history. But you have to also understand where we are at with the Jerry West Lakers saga. Um, Jerry West ultimately left the Lakers after they won their first championship with Shaq and Kobe because he wasn't getting along with Phil Jackson. Legendary coach Phil Jackson. I don't believe at that point Phil was very keen on executives being around and watching Lakers practices. And so Jerry, up until Phil came in, he would be at Lakers practices, but Phil didn't want that. So he basically isolated himself and the team away from a lot of the people like Jerry West who were accustomed to doing things a certain way. So I think that rubbed Jerry the wrong way, and he ultimately left. And he went to the Grizzlies and built them into a playoff team with Pau Gasol, and then left. And then he went to Golden State as a consultant, and obviously he was a big reason why they got Kevin Durant. And now he's with the Clippers. Well, before he became a consultant to the Clippers, there was details coming out that he wanted the Lakers to potentially bring him back in whatever role. I don't know. So this is essentially the window when Jeannie had gotten rid of Mitch Kupchak and her brother Jim Buss from their roles as GM and executive vice president of player personnel, and she was probably making a quick decision on where to go next, and that was ultimately with Magic Johnson as president of basketball operations, and then with Rob Pelinka, who was Kobe's agent, but then came in as GM. And there was whispers that West wanted to come back in some role. What role, we don't know. I don't know if he wanted to be where Magic was at and have Magic's role as president of player personnel, or if he wanted to come back in a consultant capacity. I have no idea, but that didn't happen. And so that likely rubbed Jerry West the wrong way. And then he ends up landing with the Clippers. And it's just so crazy that you've got two Lakers icons and Jerry West, and before him, Elgin Baylor, who was a longtime GM of the Clippers, working for this team that's very opposite of the Lakers. And so Jerry West clearly has an axe to burn, in my opinion. Calling the Lakers again a shit show. I think that's kind of funny considering the Clippers historically have been the shit show. And even in recent years where the Clippers have been the better product on the court versus the Lakers, just after the Clippers melted down against Denver, they were up 3-1, had an epic meltdown. Doc Rivers and the team parts ways. And in the aftermath of that, The Athletic releases that report about Kawhi Leonard not being liked by his teammates and special treatment he receives, having perks that people didn't think he probably should have, all kinds of things, not living in LA, rather living in San Diego, and canceling practices and being late for team flights, all those things. That report that The Athletic came out with. And then you have Paul George and Doc Rivers. Doc Rivers was now the coach of the Philadelphia 76ers. You've got Paul George and Doc Rivers taking shots at each other in the media, right? So I'd argue that the Clippers, their history of losing, their history with Donald Sterling as a racist, and now with the Clippers and their meltdown, even though they had two superstars and players like JaMychal Green and Trez coming to the Lakers, Jamichael going to Denver, two of their top rotation guys leaving for other contenders in the West. I'd argue the Clippers are the real shit show. They're the dumpster fire. And like I said, I have no issue with Jerry trying to convince Kawhi or his reps to get Kawhi to the Lakers, but I think it's really a sad way for Jerry to go out given his status with Lakers fans. And there are some Lakers fans that don't care. They'll just say that's Jerry, he's old man, whatever, he can say what he wants. And then there are some some Lakers fans like myself who kind of are giving this whole thing a side eye. And in that clip, and let me play it again in a few moments, but in that clip when Jerry says, he's hearing out of Lakers camp that they think they're going to get Kawhi, you have to ask, well, where does that information coming from? Who was leaking to him from the Lakers? And while I'm sure Jerry West still has allies within the Lakers purple and gold establishment. The one person that I'm looking at, and I'm sure many Lakers fans are looking at, is his son Ryan West, who was director of player personnel for the team. And so Kawhi ended up signing with the Clippers on July 10th. A few weeks later, Ryan West and the Lakers part ways on July 27th. And so, was it Ryan West leaking information to Jerry West because he knew he was on his way out the door? I don't know. Yeah, you take it upon yourself to connect whatever dots that you want to. But that's where we stand. And I don't know where any of this is gonna lead to. It's not a good look, I would imagine, for the NBA to have this going on right now. Sure, it's going to get a lot of attention. It's going to get a lot of clicks, and there will be a lot of stories and videos like my own and podcasts like my own discussing this and trying to make of it what we can. But to have one of the greatest players, to have the NBA logo involved in a scheme to get Kawhi to the Clippers, doing things under the table behind closed doors. A lot of this stuff does happen. Make no mistake. Teams use whatever advantages they can. Guys oftentimes commit to contracts before they're legally allowed to within the NBA rules. That's just the way of doing business, and I have no issue with that. But I think it's just funny Jerry West calling the Lakers the shit show when clearly that is the Clippers. And furthermore, even once Kawhi signed with the Clippers, there were talks that his rep, Uncle Dennis, had asked the Lakers and maybe some other franchises, but it was reportedly that he had asked the Lakers for a private jet for Kawhi, ownership in the team. All these things are illegal. Teams are not allowed to do that. It was also requested that maybe the Lakers provide him with a place to live on their own dime, that they guaranteed him a base amount of money from endorsements. Again, the Lakers can't do that. The Lakers can't guarantee what another business entity is going to give a star player. That's outside of the rules and guidelines. And so it had been reported that Kawhi's people were asking for things outside of the norm. Also, Kawhi's people wanted Magic to be a part of the conversations if Kawhi was going to come to the Lakers. And at that point, Magic was no longer with the Lakers. He had already stepped down in April, and the Lakers had moved on. Rob Pelinka was in charge. And even then, once all this surfaced back in July, the NBA did take a look at what was being asked of these franchises from Kawhi's people. I don't think anything came of it because I haven't heard anything, and I don't think the Clippers or Kawhi was actually fined anything. But here we are, guys suing in open court, and the league is taking another look at all these allegations. Voicemails are being released, and it's really a bad look, I think, for the NBA. But hey, Jerry West wanted to go down this road. Sometimes when you work with people who are a little less than upfront, things like this get released. And if you're Adam Silver, you're probably sitting around with the top officials in the NBA looking at this and probably taking a cue from the great Lester Freeman from The Wire.
You follow drugs, you get drug addicts and drug dealers. But you start to follow the money, and you don't know where the fuck it's gonna take you.
The great Lester Freeman. I mean, you're right. He's right. You follow the money, which I'm sure that as good as these guys try to cover things up, there will be a paper trail somewhere. So Adam Silver needs to figure out what he wants to do. But I think that for Jerry West, again, to win a championship with the great Wilt Chamberlain in LA, to be the icon that he is, to usher in championships with Magic Johnson and Kareem. Jerry West was the GM. Usher in those championships to get the Lakers, Shaq and Kobe, which ushered in the next great Lakers dynasty. To do all those things and to be taking shots at this franchise from across the hall, from the JV team, that to me wipes some of the shine off of his legacy and how he will be viewed with some Lakers fans, not all, but some. So that's my reaction to all of this. I will certainly drop another vid if anything new comes out. But hey, thank you guys for subscribing to the channel. Make sure you like and subscribe to the video and the channel. Check out the podcast, Lakers Central Podcast. We're on Apple, we're on Spotify, Google, TuneIn, Stitcher, wherever you get podcasts. And thank you guys for listening to or watching Lakers Central.